Hello, everyone. I just wanted to give an update of the development progress for PhotoCuller. So here is the new UI. So I think it's a nice, clean, modern UI, and I'm quite happy with how it looks currently. So this is probably what the final product is going to look like. And yeah, just wanted to give an overview of some of the new features that have been introduced. So on the side here, we have the folder navigator where we can add any folder we want, and it will be tracked in here. It supports tree view, so we can recursively load photos as needed and all of that kind of stuff. Below that, we have Apple Photos integration. So if I expand this, this will actually bring up all of my Apple Photos libraries. And I can basically click on any library and have it loaded into the grid here. Um, the grid UI has been revamped and changed. So we have color labels here where we can set labels on elements. We have the star rating, we have the flag indicator. And of course, everything is bound to the keyboard. So 1 to 4 to set the star rating, 6 to 0 sets the color labels, like so, and vice versa. We also have the ability to toggle the keep status for RAW or JPEG photos. So again, one of the parts of the workflow is maybe you want to only keep RAWs for certain photos and JPEGs for others. So now you can dynamically toggle which one of the pairing would be kept. So if they're both white, that means they're both being kept. Otherwise, you'll see the status changing here. We have the right side panel here, which basically gives some metrics about all the selected things that we've done here. So we have the number of photos in each star rating label. Up here, we have the filters. So if I want to filter by the yellow label, we will have that filter applied. Or perhaps we want to label by 3 stars. We can do that as well. And we have the flag filters and all the standard filtering thing that you would need. So the next feature I want to highlight is photo stacking. So we now have the ability to create stacks via drag and drop operations. So let's say I want to stack these two photos. They are now stacked. And this is the collapse stack. You'll see this blue icon here indicating it's a stack. And we can expand it by clicking on the blue icon, and that will expand the stack. Another thing we can do is we can just add another image to the stack by dragging onto it. We can rearrange photos within a stack. We can also create a new stack over here, and we can merge two stacks together by just dragging them on top of each other. We can drag things out of a stack and make a new one from that. So all the operations you would expect from stacking is now working. Um, the next thing I want to showcase on the stacking feature is um, grouping. Let me just find a good data set to showcase this on. So we have the sorting controls up here. So we can order by date taken, file name, rating currently. But I want to show auto stacking. So to really show this, let me make the grid a bit smaller. Okay, so here we have this sequence of turtles. Now, I'm probably only going to want to keep one of these photos. So what we can do is we can right click and go auto stack, and we get this stacking control, which will determine the parameters for what range to pick based on the time gap between photos. So basically, this 10 seconds means that all of these photos were taken within 10 seconds of each other. So they will be grouped together into one stack. And then we have some controls to kind of fine grain the selection because sometimes it's not perfect in its selection. But this looks perfect, so I will create a stack. And now all of those turtles have been stacked into one. So the same goes for this here. So we can go stack. It will select all of that. Let's narrow it down to say 5 seconds. I'm happy with that. And now we have a stack. And then in that stack, we can then pick the best one, maybe drag it to the first one, give it a 5-star rating or whatever we want to do to pick our best image for the stack. The next feature I want to showcase is the loop feature. So if we hold down the Option key on the keyboard and then click and drag the mouse cursor on an image, we will get this nice zoomed in loop view of the photo. So then we can quickly check focus and see how everything is done right here from the grid. Up here in the top right corner, I have some controls where we control the default zoom level of the loop. So if I go to 10x, it will get right in on there. So this is useful for checking in focus, eyes are in focus, all that kind of stuff here. So this is another really highly requested feature that people wanted, and I actually really like it for myself. And that is now part of the build here. Let's see. Color labels. Color labels can be customized. So right now we have just the standard red, yellow, orange, green, blue. But let's say we want to give a label a color. Let's say I want to call red is going to be my rejects. I can then rename it, and maybe yellow is going to be duplicates or whatever I want. So, and then when you save, you can either apply these saves to your global settings, meaning every time you launch the program, it will retain those color labels, or maybe this specific photo culling session, I only want to have certain things for, I don't know. Maybe in what I just showed you here is animals. Maybe I'll make a label for animals and then I want to label all that or whatever we want to do. So that's kind of what this setting here was, just like keep it only for this session or make it a global save so that every time you launch, those color labels will become named. And you'll see here on the right side, we now have rejects and duplicates have been customized to be named. We have the metadata view here. So we have the different file sizes, JPEG and RAW in this case. And then, of course, the metadata lens, all the aperture, exposure, the stuff you would typically expect. Down at the bottom here, we can edit some of the metadata, such as the author and the copyright. And this is still incomplete. I still want to add more metadata because I know our power users are going to want to add all kinds of things. But that's just the very beginning of the metadata. So let's say I want to add the author as Jeff. So now you will see it's been changed. And you'll see it says one pending edit. I'll explain that in a second. And here you can also adjust the date. So you can just set it directly or shift by a certain amount or change time zone. So this is kind of our date controls here. So you can adjust the date time. That seems to be a feature that certain people were really looking for. And we can kind of do that in bulk actions. So if I do a shift on a range of photos, we can adjust the date range for that range of photos. And obviously the UI here is not complete yet. It's still a work in progress. But the idea is you can adjust a set or a group of photos as well as metadata. Again, this UI is, I'm not quite happy with it. It's still a work in progress, but the concept is there that we can edit metadata across a group of photos. So let's say I want to make the copyright here to Jeff, and if we apply that, that will apply. And you'll notice this orange badge shows up here, which indicates the metadata of that photo has been modified in some way. So with this photo culling app, basically the grid here is stateless, meaning anything you change here doesn't affect anything until you go to the export phase. So the idea is here you can have your inputs are coming in from the left-hand side here. So it can be a file folder on your hard disk or an SD card or from Apple Photos or anything. And then in the middle, you do all your filtering, your culling, your tagging, your labeling, star ratings, editing your metadata, renaming files, all that kind of stuff. And then once you've kind of done all of that, up in the top right corner here is this export pipelines window. And this is where you then take all those changes that you've done and we want to apply them. So whether that be copying your photos to another directory or whether it be mutating or editing the underlying photos, like say moving um, or deleting and all those kind of things. So there's kind of two modes. There's a copy mode or there's a move mode, where it would actually literally move your photos from one place to another versus copying from one place to another. And the idea here is that we can have multiple pipelines set up. So in the example here, if I edit this pipeline, we can say that this will only target photos that have a rating of 1 to 3 stars. And let's say only flag photos with an orange label. And this is kind of the criteria for this pipeline. And then we can set our destination to be either the file system or Apple Photos, where we can set an album. Again, the UI here is not done yet. It's still, this part of the app is still very much in development, but just wanted to give you a conceptual overview of how the exporting works. So we can define criteria for filters and then destinations. And then when we do our exports, it will then run through all of these pipelines. So the idea is we can have multiple pipelines. So we can add another pipeline like so. So now we have two different pipelines here, and different pipelines can target different things. So let's say I could set a pipeline that would only match the raw files and export them to my NAS using a specific folder structure. And then I could have another pipeline that only targets JPEGs with a rating of 4 or higher, goes to this album in Apple Photos. Or maybe I could use the color labels to label, I don't know, animals and have that label match. And then those would then match to an animal's library on Apple Photos, or maybe a certain directory on your computer, or anything like that. That's kind of the idea behind the pipelines, is you can set up multiple pipelines to kind of dictate the flow of where the photos are going to go or what changes will happen to them under the hood. So in my prior career, I used to be a data engineer, so I'm taking these concepts from data engineering via something called extract, transform, load, or ETL. So that's where you extract the data, you transform the data, and then you load the data. So we kind of have the same concepts at play here. So extract is basically, this is here is where you're extracting the images from. Where's the images coming from? This is the transform, is the grid, and all the renaming, all that kind of stuff is the transform phase. And then the load is then either moving those files or copying them to whatever destination based on those pipelines. So yeah, I think that's the most of the current features we have in development. I think feature-wise, this is what I'm looking to release for the first version. There's still some performance issues that I'm still continually working through. Right now, the grid still is not quite as fast as I would like it to be. And so, we'll keep refining that, but I just wanted to give kind of a demo of where the app is, just to kind of show the auto stacking again here, just creating a stack. And yeah, so please let me know of any feedback, how you think the UI, how the app's working, functionality, the features that we have. I think the loop feature is quite nice. It's easy to quickly zoom in on different photos like this and see how everything looks. And yeah, my goal here was to make a nice, clean, modern UI that's a joy to use. And I'd love your opinion on how that's coming along. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and keep in touch.